So Hastings under pressure from Vete. It's a shallow kick heading towards Lolohea, who's been good so far, and he's good again. And looks upfield, Lolohea, he's got pace. Gets to Latrell Mitchell, gets beyond Latrell Mitchell. Oh, Roger Chua-Vasselchek, what a story this would be. He gets away from Sean Kenny now, and he announced the signature that halfway through last year, he would leave the Roosters to the Warriors, and they pay the ultimate price. What a story.
Well, that's what Coasties may have to look forward to in coming months, with confirmation this week that the New Zealand Warriors will be making the Central Coast their home base for the remainder of the 2020 NRL season. That clip, of course, is the 2016 Golden Point try by the Warriors right here at Central Coast Stadium. It's not clear yet whether the Warriors will play any matches at the stadium, but Peter Vlandie, if you're watching, there's 350,000 fans up here now counting on it. I'm Ross Barry and you're watching Coast Community News 5 at 5. Premier Gladys Berejiklian this week laid out the next steps in lifting social restrictions in New South Wales. From today, up to 10 people will be allowed to visit food-serving venues such as pubs, clubs, restaurants and cafes. Residents will also now be allowed to gather outside in groups of up to 10 people, while the limit on household visitors will be increased to 5, including children. Weddings can now be attended by 10 people, while 20 people can go to an indoor funeral and 30 can attend an outdoor one. Up to 10 people can attend religious gatherings and places of worships, and playgrounds and outdoor gym equipment in parks have reopened, and outdoor pools will be open, but with restrictions. One group of people who were particularly happy to see the restrictions slowly easing were the staff at the Bon here in Gosford. David Abraham spoke to licensee Joanne Ferguson earlier today.
Thanks, Ross. Yes, while we were doing our deliveries this morning, the newspapers, we saw lots of cafes and restaurant owners setting up for resumption of services, usually with exactly 10 tables. Joanne Ferguson at the Bon in Gosford was preparing for a staged reopening this morning, and this is what she had to say.
Had a few people hanging out this morning, obviously adhering to the guidelines. Been a bit of a lull now, but we're still operating our takeaway and Bon box.
How's it been for the last 6 or 7 weeks?
Look, I'm not going to lie, the first couple of weeks were really hard. We have been open, operating as takeaway and also a bottle shop the whole way through. But each week has been better, and the week of Mother's Day was particularly exciting. It was just frantic, and it was just like a real restaurant again, which was really exciting.
One of the organisations that have been most affected by the shutdown were Coast Shelter, who had to close their communal kitchen. The team at Coast Shelter responded with the Give It 19 initiative, which has raised $70,000 in donations since the beginning of March. Coast Shelter have then used the money to engage several local eateries to produce fresh packaged food for delivery, and as a result have kept many people fed and helped local small businesses to keep afloat. It's a great story. In other news, it was a big week for Central Coast Council. Councillors had to vote to hand over more powers to approve what's called larger developments to a local planning panel, in a move mandated by the state government. And in a strange twist, they were accused by Terrigal MP Adam Crouch of stalling projects by insisting that they go to the state's Independent Planning Commission for assessment. Well, Mayor Lisa Matthews said that referring them to the Commission provided the community confidence that the proposals were being objectively assessed on merit. The council, which has kept almost all its services open and functioning during the shutdown, has also laid the first pipes at the major Mardi pipeline project. And we spoke today with Lisa Matthews, the Mayor, about some of these matters.
Yeah, look, the planning panel was something that the state government impressed upon us. It wasn't something that we voted for as an elected representative. We are elected to do due diligence in relation to DAs. However, the state in their wisdom decided to remove us from that and gave us a planning panel. So we're pretty much now at the mercy of this new planning panel, and we just have to hope that and trust that the expert panel get it right.
The Mardi pipeline seems to be progressing well. It's a very big infrastructure investment the council leads. How is it going?
Mm-hmm. Look, it's going great. Got out on site last week, and one of the good news stories, it's 75 extra jobs here for our community. So that's great in the midst of COVID, of course. It's great for local people that can be employed locally.
And there has been some angst over council's local strategic planning statement, which calls for an audit of small parks and reserves and discussion of how they might be better used. 5 years ago, thousands of residents successfully protested against a plan by council to sell off some 25 small parks in favour of a few larger regional playgrounds. And there is some concern that the future of small parks around the coast may again be at risk. I spoke earlier with Sue Chidgey of Save Central Coast Reserves, who led the charge 5 years ago.
Yes, in 2015 and 2016, hundreds of residents stood up against the possible sell-off of 25 local reserves. It took us 15 months to save them. And I just feel at the moment there's a draft local planning strategy that is going through for discussion at the moment. And it basically says that they want to look at small parks that are underutilised and possibly looking at more multi-use open space destinations. I feel that is the beginning of a threat again for local reserves. And I think that residents need to be made aware of it.
I understand the strategy is out for hearing in council right now. What can people do?
You can go to the draft Central Coast Local Strategic Planning Statement. It's in the website, very easy. It's the summary document, page 39.
And finally, there's some angst in the community over recent bank closures around the coast. Most notably, the Commonwealth Bank closed its branch at Fountain Plaza in Erina this week and followed earlier closures at the Entrance Town Centre branch and its Terrigal branch. The CBA did note that its newly built Erina Fair branch would open later this month. The bank has also advised us that the closures reflect a significant drop in people coming to the branches during the pandemic and that those staff have been reassigned to its call centre in Newcastle to help with the sharp rise in customer support calls. All right, back to you, Ross.
Thanks, David. Well, in news just to hand, SBS have reported that the Central Coast Mariners owner Mike Charlesworth is in talks with Northern Beaches Council and the NRL's Manly Sea Eagles, and that could see the struggling A-League club exit Gosford for good. Charlesworth was said to be frustrated with Central Coast Council over his ambitious bid to take over the management rights of the Central Coast Stadium. The news will come as a blow to aspiring local players as well as those working on a coast-based W League team. And it's also sure to generate a storm among the Mariners faithful who have had to endure 4 wooden spoons in the last 6 years and whom I suspect might be much happier if Mike Charlesworth just took himself off to Manly and left the club here. On a brighter note, we'd like to leave you with a sultry serenade from one of the most popular entertainers on the Central Coast, Evan Haswell. Evan has been performing live across the coast retirement villages for the last 15 years and has transferred his talents online in recent weeks to keep his adoring fans happy. Don't forget to get a copy of issue 242, hot off the press this morning, for all these stories and more. And be sure to visit our website and subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you next week.
Oh, and brown moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie. That's amore. Hey, that's amore. Come on, hey. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore. Hey, more red, why, hey? Bells will ring, ting-a-ling-a-ling, ting, and you'll sing the bella. Hey, the bella, come on. Hearts will play tippy-tippy-tay, tippy-tippy-tay, like a gay tarantella. Hey, that's a lucky fella, hey.